These are the conversations we weren't supposed to have, and the stories we weren't supposed to tell. This is the Jerry and Nathan Show.
Well, hey, y'all.
Welcome to the Jerry and Nathan Show. I'm Nathan.
And I'm Jerry. And hey, guys, listen, we really appreciate all the support and the love that you've given us over the past few weeks that we've been doing this. We've had a lot of fun with it, but apparently you guys have really enjoyed it as well. We've gotten so many listens. We've gotten reviews. We've gotten text messages, personal messages, DMs, all the things just telling us how much it helped and how much you enjoyed it. So thank you so much for that. Remember to continue writing those reviews and go in and rate us on wherever you listen to your podcast. Like the show, subscribe to the show, whatever it is that you need to do so that you can get the updates and listen every time there's a new release. So tonight, what we're going to do is let Nathan tell his story. I've been talking a lot. The past couple of episodes has been all about me. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? I'm just kidding. But Nathan's going to tell us about his story, his growing up, and how he got to where he is. So, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's get started. Oh, the sounds of my childhood. That is the choir at Sheridan Hills Baptist Church in Hollywood, Florida. Is actually the choir that my parents sang in years and years ago. And it's the church that I was born in, my parents grew up in, they met in, and I grew up in for a bulk of my life up till my teenage years. And so my parents met there in Hollywood, and they married, and shortly after I came along, and then a few years later my sister came along, and then a few years later it didn't go so well, and they ended up getting divorced. In my family there were some issues. My dad had some issues, struggled with anger a little bit, and I want to just put in parentheses here, he has done a lot of hard work over the years and has come a long way and is a totally different person from childhood. But he struggled with that. He was a young guy. He was in his early 20s and just, I think he just didn't know what he was supposed to do or how to do it right. And so my parents divorced when I was 5. My sister was 3 years old. And we ended up living with my dad and growing up with my dad there in Hollywood and Davie and all that area of Broward County and in Florida. And my childhood is so different than Jerry's childhood.
Yeah, we were talking about that last night a little bit. So many differences, and there's a lot of things as we were talking about that. There's a lot of things that you didn't recall right off the bat.
Yeah, just talking through it last night, and I was like, "Gosh, I don't remember." I remember that now. I remember that now. That's right. I've told you that before. So my childhood was just different, and there was a lot of good times. I have a lot of great memories of trips that we went on and things that we got to do. But I also just don't remember a lot of things and don't have those funny, goofy stories from my childhood.
And I think let's be honest about it too. I think there were a lot, even though there was a lot of good things, there were a lot of bad things as well.
Yeah,
and so you kind of blocked those out, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think in a way I kind of tried to move past that stuff as I've gotten older, and just kind of let it go and not let it control my life, because for the longest time I too struggled with anger. I was angry at my parents for getting divorced. I was angry because my dad would discipline me harshly and was just critical of my grades and just the things that I did and how I did them. And so I think as I got older, I tried to just move beyond that stuff and tried to learn to release it and not hold on to it. And I'll be honest. I mean, I've done therapy on many different occasions. I think therapy is a fabulous thing. I think, honestly, everybody should probably do a little bit of therapy from time to time. But I think that helped me overcome a lot of that stuff. And it certainly helped me overcome my anger issues. I remember one time I was at my mom's parents' house, and my grandmother took feathers and she said, go put these out by the tree and let's wait a few minutes and let the wind blow and then go try to find them and bring them back. She said, that's what your anger's like. It just, once it's out there, you can't bring it back in again. She was trying to help me understand you've got to control your emotions. Your emotions are controlling you instead of the other way around. But despite the negative things that I recall, I do recall some good times. And even that music there at the beginning, it does bring me back to my childhood of growing up at Sheridan Hills. And I have positive memories of that. I don't have anger at my growing up in the church or in that particular church. While it was a very conservative church, it was vastly different conservative than your conservative growing up. But I have great memories. Made friends, have friends to this day from Sheridan Hills. But let me just rewind back to that divorce time, because I was about 5 years old when that happened and going into kindergarten. And so my dad felt it was best for us to be in a private school with smaller classrooms and where the teachers were aware of our situation and what had happened in our home. A lot of them went to church with us at Sheridan Hills. And so that's where we ended up going to school, was at Flamingo Road Christian Academy out west of Hollywood. And I remember at 5 years old knowing I was different. Something was different about me. And my grandfather would pick us up from school, and it was when I was in kindergarten. My sister was in K2 or K3 or whatever, and he would always have Rush Limbaugh on because we got picked up at noon when Rush was on. And if you don't know who Rush Limbaugh was, he's a very conservative talk radio host, but that has since passed on. But I would hear about gay people on his radio show.
Even back then.
Yes. And I thought, I couldn't quite connect the dots of that what's different about me is this, but there was something about what he would say that I was like, I feel like I relate a little bit to this situation. And so as I continued to grow up, I knew again that something was different about me. Something was not the same as all the other boys at school who were interested in the girls, or my cousins that were dating girls as we got into those teenage years. And so growing up in the church like you did, we heard all the time that this is a bad and sinful thing. And so once I got to the age where I could connect the dots that, oh my gosh, I'm, in air quotes, struggling with homosexuality, because that's what you say when you're a good evangelical, I found myself trying so hard not to be that way. And I remember, and we were Southern Baptists, so we didn't believe in the gifts of the Spirit and all those things that later came into my church life. But I remember I had a TV in my room. Unlike you, we had TVs in our rooms growing up. And so we had cable and everything. And I would watch the Trinity Broadcasting Network, which is still around, but it's a big worldwide Christian TV network.
That's the blue hair lady.
It's the blue hair ladies with lots of makeup.
And lots of gold.
Yeah. Jan Crouch with her eyelashes. Uh-huh. And I would watch that. And I remember as a kid, they had a phone number you could call for prayer. And I never did it, but I wanted to call and ask them to help me pray for something. I didn't want to tell them what it was, kind of like you didn't want to tell your mom it was an unspoken that you had, or whatever. Yeah. But I thought, maybe if I call them, maybe those people, because they seem like they've got something special. Something's different about, they're not like these stodgy old Baptists over here. They've got some power or something. So maybe if I can call them, maybe they can help me. But all of my childhood, all of those years growing up, I was intrigued by gay people. I remember our pastor at Sheridan Hills had preached a sermon or a series. I don't recall. I was a kid. about homosexuality. And so some LGBT group came and protested at the church.
Oh.
Yes. And because they were on TV, the church was on TV. And so people saw it. It wasn't just, from what was heard in the pews. And I thought, I want to go out the front doors because I want to see what do these people look like? What does a gay person look like? Like, what are they? What's that like? And of course we didn't. We went out a back door to avoid the protest on the front side of the church. And then I remember one time my aunt was getting ready to sell their house and move from Hollywood to Jupiter. And a gay couple came to look at the house. And I was so intrigued, like, oh my gosh, there's a gay couple, like, this is interesting. And of course she had horrible things to say when they left. Again, reinforcing this is a negative, this is bad.
Yeah.
And there was one pastor who was from California that really influenced my family, John MacArthur. He has since passed on as well. But John MacArthur was a very passionate Bible teacher and just had a mentality of like, I know everything and what I say is solid gospel gold and you should take it to the bank. And I want to play a clip of him talking about homosexuality because this is what I heard growing up at Sheridan Hills in Calvary Chapel, which we'll talk about in a little bit, at my grandparents' house. These are the things that I heard because they listened to John MacArthur every day and they bought his study Bible and they had his commentaries. And so they were all about John MacArthur. And so I just want to pause for a second and just play what it was that I actually heard as a kid growing up.
Their women exchange the natural function for that which is unnatural. In the same way, also the men abandoned the natural function of the woman and burned in their desire toward one another, men with men committing indecent acts and receiving in their own persons the due penalty of their error. At the end of that verse, receiving in their persons the due penalty is the diseases that come consequent to homosexual behavior. And as you know, they unleashed on the world the horror of AIDS. But what it's saying here is that when God abandons a nation or a culture under his wrath, there will be a sexual revolution followed by a homosexual revolution.
So there you have what I would hear is, oh my gosh, you'll get a disease. Oh my gosh, it's a sinful thing. Oh my gosh, the whole nation's going to go down if there's gay people around. Like, oh, what we have so much power and authority. And while he was quoting a scripture from Romans, it was his interpretation of that passage. And there was a book that meant so much to me when I first came out. Wherever you are on your journey, we're in a deconstruction process ourselves, and we're going to talk about that on later episodes. But I needed this book when I first came out, and it was God and the Gay Christian by Matthew Vines. And it just opened my eyes to the passages being misinterpreted for decades. And another thing recently that I enjoyed watching, and I commend to you, is 1946, the movie 1946, that talks about how homosexuality was not even in the Bible until 1946. And so, but what I did is what so many people do is we go to church, we hear the pastor, he's been to Bible college and seminary, so he must know what he's talking about. And he's telling me that in the Greek it says this, or in the Hebrew it says that. And so he must know it. I mean, he knows what I can't go find out because I don't have that knowledge and that training. And so you take it and you say, well, if that's the case, I got to get rid of this thing that is inside of me that is something is wrong. And I don't know what it is. And so I just remember all over the years, I just kept it to myself. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't act on it. I didn't do anything. I was scared to death to act on it because of things like what John MacArthur just said.
So I want to pause you for a second. And I'm very curious about your relationship with your mom. Because I've shared in my story, I was very close to my mom. Like, we were really good friends. So I know your mom and dad divorced when you were 5, but what happened after that? Were you close to your mom or no? How did that work?
Yeah, I was. We lived with my dad. He had sole custody or majority custody, and so we didn't spend a whole lot of time with mom growing up. I mean, we did. I mean, I would say, even when we kind of chatted about this a little bit last night, and I feel like we probably did go there a couple times a month on the weekends and stuff like that. And my parents were able to be cordial with each other. When we had a birthday party, both sides of the family came and everybody was there together and was able to function. And matter of fact, my dad got along very well with my mom's family. And even till my grandmother passed away, she would ask about my dad and say, well, that was always my son-in-law. I loved him, whatever. But I did not have the same rapport with my mom that you had with your mom, that same connection.
And I know this is not a therapy session for sure, but why do you think there was a bitterness at her because of the divorce, that maybe you weren't as close, or it just wasn't something that you ever pursued?
Yeah, I think it was probably a little bit of that, some anger at the situation. But I think also probably just because the bulk of our time was with Dad, that was the parent that was the connection. I did connect very, very much with my mom's mom. And so she kind of filled the void of my mother.
And this is who you call Mima.
Mima.
Okay.
And so I was very close with her. She's the one that told me the story about, chase the feathers and see if you can. And so I bonded with her with a maternal relationship there. And so I was very close to her, would spend a lot of time there. When they moved up to Malabar in Brevard County, we would go up for the summer for weeks at a time and holidays and all those things. And so she kind of filled that spot for my mom. And then later my aunt kind of also did a little bit, my mom's sister. And, but anyways, so I grew up hearing this, and I was just frozen because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know. But one of the things that I knew and I thought from a young age was, I want to be a pastor. I wanted to be the music leader, but I thought, I don't know if I can do all that. That's a lot of work. But I could do something in the church. And so in my mind, as I got older and into those teenage years, I was like, well, if you're going to do that, you have to get married. You have to have a family. That's just kind of an expectation in the evangelical church, is the pastors are married and they've got their family.
Yeah, 6.2 kids.
Yeah. And a dog and a white picket fence.
Yes.
And so that was my mindset, was let me just shove this aside and just try to bury it the best that I can and do what I've been told to do. Because I remember there was a Christian artist, and she had come out, and she said people asked her after the fact, why would you go and sing in these churches that preached against who you knew you were inside, even though they didn't know? And she said, because I believed it. And that was the same thing. I believed it wholeheartedly, that this was sin, this was wrong, this will send you to hell. You cannot do this. You cannot have this lifestyle, quote unquote. And go ahead, sorry.
No, I just find it interesting now in where we are in our journey. And as you said, we're going to get to this a little bit more later on in some of the episodes, but the belief that you had was not necessarily your belief. It was what someone had told you to believe.
Yeah, it's not like I came to that myself.
Yeah,
it was what I was brought up hearing and brought up seeing, and hearing the jokes or hearing the negative comments, whatever. And so, as I got older, my dad ended up remarrying when I was about 15 years old. And she came with 2 more kids that were the same age as my sister and I. And so one of the things that I used to hear in church, and this is true, blended families don't blend, they collide. and that is a factual statement. Because it's just 2 different ways of doing life, 2 different histories and backgrounds, and all those things were just coming together, and it was not working. And at that point in time, my dad was still struggling with anger. I had my own anger issues going on. And so we just butted heads left and right. He's a firstborn. I'm a firstborn. I mean, it was just Clash of the Titans all the time. And I for the most part, I could get along with my stepsisters, but there was clashing there too. And so when I was about 15, I said, I don't want to live here anymore. I don't want to be in this house. And we had moved at that point to an area called Loxahatchee, which is west of West Palm Beach, for those of you that know where that is. And so I said, well, I'm going to go back to Hollywood. I'm going to live with Mom or Aunt Alicia or somebody. And so I went back to Mom's. Well, Mom had remarried at that point, and I didn't always approve of her husband. I struggled with him as well. It's just, I think it's that anger and disappointment that my parents aren't together. Like even though this person didn't cause it, another person caused it. But even though this person caused it, it wasn't. I just had anger and bitterness.
Yeah. Well, the trauma of it all created that anger. And so when you see that person, even though they may not have anything to do with what's going on, you're angry at them too.
Yeah, you're just angry at the whole situation. Yeah. So I did go back to my mom's for about a week. And then I said, you know what? I think I'm going to go live with my Aunt Alicia. And so I went to live with her across town there in Hollywood. And then we ultimately moved to Jupiter, Florida, which is also in Palm Beach County. And we started going to a Baptist church because that's what we did. We were generations of Baptist. And so that's where you went to church. Baptist born and Baptist bred. When I die, I'll be Baptist dead was the mantra of the family. And so we started going to a Baptist church, and I started working for Publix. I was getting to that age. I was about 16 at that point. And I said, I had a friend that I worked with, and they said, come with me to church at my brother's church. And I was like, okay. And they said, it's a Calvary Chapel. I had been to a Calvary Chapel one time, and I enjoyed it. It was just very different from what I knew growing up. It was non-denominational. It had the worship band and a very casual environment. Where we grew up, it was more suits and ties and a formal space. And so I went one Sunday. Well, back to John MacArthur, I liked listening to John MacArthur because he was a teacher. And so there was a lot of in-depth explanation, and I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that hour of just give me info. I want the info. Make it make sense to me. And so I went, and this pastor starts doing the same thing. He's just opens up a book of the Bible and just starts going from verse to verse through the whole chapter. And I went home, and I said to my aunt, I was like, oh my gosh, this church is like John MacArthur. Like they're doing the same thing that he does. And she's like, yeah, but they're charismatic. And if you don't know what charismatic is Pentecostal light. And they do believe in the gifts of the Spirit and things like that. And so, where as Baptists, we didn't believe those things. We didn't believe in speaking in tongues or, healing or anything like that. And so I said, yeah, but I'm going to go back again. I'm going to go back there again. And so I went back, and they had a table with all these books from Chuck Smith, the founder of Calvary Chapel out in California. And I bought every book they had at that table, and I read every book they had. And I was like, this is it. This is the place for me. I do believe in the gifts of the Spirit, and this is where I'm going to go to church. And so I left the church and started going to Calvary Chapel, Jupiter. And it was a new church. It had only been around for 2 years there at that point, which I found intriguing because I thought, I'm going to be on the ground floor of this thing. This is exciting. And it was growing rapidly at the time. And I just started to get involved because I thought, that's what they keep saying you're supposed to do. I didn't know that. My dad taught Sunday school. My grandfather taught Sunday school, but I didn't know like this concept they had of like, well, we're meeting in a high school. You're going to have to help us set up and tear down this place. So join the set up and tear down team, or we need greeters out in the parking lot, or all these things that I'd never really seen growing up. But I was like, okay, let me get involved and start being a part of what's going on here.
So let's pause for just a second. Yeah. Let's talk about Calvary Chapel for just a second. While we're on the subject.
Yeah.
It's a new movement.
Yeah, from the 70s.
From the 70s, from like the Jesus movement.
From the Jesus people movement of the 70s, yep.
It was basically founded by a lot of hippies, right?
Yep, sure was.
Yeah.
Yep.
So like from Woodstock, then they got Jesus, and,
yes.
and they started this Jesus movement.
Yes.
And Chuck Smith was like their shepherd, pastor-ish person.
Well, yes, he was. But Lonnie Frisbee,
that's where I was going,
was the one who they came for. So the way that they described it, I don't know what all is factual, but the way they described it was they came for Lonnie, they stayed for Chuck. And Chuck was the Bible teacher. Lonnie was more the evangelist, like go out in the community and get people and bring them in. Well, Lonnie was gay. Lonnie got married to a woman. He hid this from everybody, but ultimately Lonnie ended up dying of AIDS later in life after he'd divorced his wife and contracted HIV. But this man was a gay man, and he's out there doing this stuff, and people are coming. Like, wait a minute, that can't be. Like, that can't be.
So I'm all kinds of curious now. So
yeah.
He was closeted.
Oh,
gay.
Yes.
But did people? Well, you don't know. You
I
weren't
don't
there.
know.
But
I wasn't born yet.
I'm just trying to piece this part together. Like, okay, the Calvary Chapel was founded basically by a gay man and a teacher.
Yep.
And this is where you really want to go to church because you're drawn to this church.
Yeah, not knowing the Lonnie Frisbee story at all. Yeah, I didn't know that till
it's just
years
ironic,
later.
Right?
Yeah, very ironic. I didn't know that till years later. Well, I still have this quote unquote issue that I'm struggling with down deep inside because, I would see some of these young families there, and some of these men, and I thought, oh man, they're really hot, like that's the script that would run in my head. And then it was like guilt, go confess your sins. And, I was working at Publix, but I got an opportunity to volunteer at the Christian radio station, Way FM. And so part of that, I ended up doing kind of an internship type. It was a paid position, but it was just very, 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 very part-time. And so I hosted a public affairs program on there that aired every Saturday morning. And I got to do the whole thing. I got to write it, produce it, host it, edit it, the whole thing. And so I saw that they had a ministry at Calvary Chapel, Fort Lauderdale, that helped gay people to not be gay anymore. And so I'm like, I'm going to interview them. And so they drove up, the director and this former gay man, quote unquote, former gay man, comes up to the studio there in West Palm Beach, and I interview them, and I'm a nervous wreck because I'm like, I'm in the room with a gay person. And are they going to figure this out? And are they going to figure me out?
Yeah.
And are they going to clock me? Mm-hmm. And but I just was like so excited to do this interview because I thought, well, maybe this will help me. Maybe there's something they say that I don't know. And of course it didn't. Nothing changed for me. And then we had this guest speaker who was really. He didn't go to Calvary Fort Lauderdale, but they had him there all the time. And he came to speak, and they brought, this was at Calvary Jupiter, they brought all these ministries. I mean, there must have been 6-7 tables of ministries that were out front after the service to help you come get saved and not be gay anymore. And I didn't say anything to any of them, but I was hanging around because I wanted to hear what was being said, because I thought, well, maybe there's something for me here. Fortunately, thank God, I never did end up with, some kind of conversion therapy or anything like that. I'm so thankful that I didn't experience that, because I know so many people that did, and it's traumatizing. Dangerous. It's very dangerous.
Yeah, so sidebar, it was just so disheartening, the Supreme Court decision that was made earlier this month, right? Or end of last month, about conversion therapy. And I get the decision wasn't necessarily saying that conversion therapy is right, but it was preventing a ban by parents of teenagers for conversion therapy. But the root of the problem, to me, is not necessarily what a state can or cannot do. The root of the problem is that a parent would want to change their teenage daughter or son and send them to conversion therapy to make them different than what they are. That's the sad part to me.
It is, and so I'm so thankful that I never told anybody. And now I did ultimately, as I got probably about 18 years old, I one time told my younger cousin, who was about the same age as my sister, just in a brief conversation, like, I struggle with this kind of thing. And it was one of those, like, she was so young that she was like, oh, okay, I'll just pray about it or whatever. And it was just it was dismissed, and nothing was ever said about it. And so I just, kept plugging along. Well, I ended up having the opportunity to come on as an intern at Calvary Jupiter. And then ultimately as a minister, and then as a pastor. They ranked it that way, was the way they did that was just their structure. Every church does it different. But I came on staff there after getting married, and I totally missed that part.
I know. I was getting ready to say, ding, 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 ding. Hold on. We're rewinding. We're going backwards.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're at Calvary Jupiter, and you're volunteering, and you're also working at Publix.
Yep. And the radio station.
And there was a family.
There was a family who had been there from the jump, that had helped found Calvary Jupiter, and had been going to Calvary Fort Lauderdale for like a year before Calvary Jupiter started. And I started going to the young adults group that they started, and I met the kid's mom. And at that time, I thought, okay, well, this is a good family. Like, they're really solid, and like they've been here from the jump, and her mom's the children's director, and her dad's a leader, and she sings on the worship team and helps in the kids ministry. And so this is a good family for me to get to know, and let me see where this goes with her, because maybe this is the fix. Maybe this fixes me. And because somewhere deep inside, I thought, if I can just get married, this will go away.
Yeah.
It'll solve all this, and it'll just go away. It's just some kind of distortion of something that I just need to just get married, and it'll go away. And so we started dating. It was the first person I'd ever dated. And we started dating, and then about a year later, we got married.
And you're how old at this time?
I was 21 when I just turned 21 when we got married. And 9 months later came Leanne, the oldest. And then 2 years later came Amy. Amy's 2 years younger. So 2 years later came Amy.
Well, you just got started right away.
Yeah, we just went right at it.
You said to yourself, get this gay out of me.
Get this gay out of me. Well, and one of the things is, I remember growing up going to my Uncle Max's house in Jacksonville, and the family would all gather there. And so I thought, I want a big family too. Like, I want to have the crowd at the holidays, and the people dropping in, and the big breakfast on a Saturday just because everybody stopped by, and whatever. And at the same time, the pastor of the church was having kids back to back. This other family was there having kids back to back.
And why did they have so many kids?
I don't know. It wasn't a that anybody was necessarily against birth control or anything, but it was like, we're just, blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them, the Bible says. And so, children are a gift from the Lord. And so just have as many as you possibly can have. And so that influence was also playing that script was playing over here while it was like, I want to not be gay, so let me like keep fighting that piece, and I also want to have a big family anyways. And so then I ended up going into the internship and onto staff after we had been married for a few years and a few kids in. And we started doing these prayer and fasting that we would do for 3 days every quarter. And so we would fast food and just pray, and then we'd end it with a big worship night and food. And man, I spent every one of those praying, God, take this from me. Take this away from me. I don't want this. Why do I struggle with this? Why do I have this in my mind? Why do I find men attractive? Why do I, want to do stuff with them? Like, what is this? Just please take it away. And prayer after prayer, fast after fast, this thing's not going away. It's just not going away.
And by this time, you had at least 3 kids.
We
right?
had at least 3 kids, yeah. And so, I just continued down that path of working in the church and being one of the pastors and trying to hone my craft as a pastor and what that looked like. I was the executive pastor, so I handled all the finances and the staff and the volunteers and making sure everybody was trained and everybody was doing everything the way they were supposed to do it, the business side of the church, if you will. And I have thoughts on that for another day, but as time went on, the pastor had come to myself and the worship pastor. And one of our other pastors had left a few years before to go on and start a church up in the Northeast. And so he met with us one day and he said, hey, if you guys feel like God's calling you to go start a church, now's the time to do that. You need to do that. And so he said, pray about it and get back to me. But if that's what you're feeling called to do, I want to help you get that started. Well,
okay, and just pausing you for another second.
Yeah.
How many kids at this time?
Okay, so this point we have 5.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're up to 5.
5 kids.
5 kids. And I prayed about it, talked with Courtney, the kid's mom, about it. And there was another guy on staff. He wasn't a pastor. He was in that minister role. So it was like the step down from a pastor. And he did the operation stuff at church. So he reported directly to me for all that stuff. And so I went to him and I said, hey, this is the conversation we had. I'm praying about doing this. Would you like to go do this too? And he's like, well, let me pray about it. Because that's what you do. You're supposed to pray about.
Everybody prays about everything.
Yeah, pray about everything.
But really, you know what you want to do. From
you're already going to do what you want to do anyways. And so we all are praying about it, and we decide, yep, we're all going to go, and we're going to go start this church in Northeast Tennessee. And so at the same time, the worship pastor and I both, on the same day, go to the senior pastor and tell him we're both leaving to go start churches. Wow. He's going to Canada, and we're going to Tennessee. And so we left first, and we packed our bags and moved up to Tennessee to start this church that we, quote unquote, felt called to start. And so we began to settle into the area. We spent several months trying to get people to know we were there, meet some of the other pastors in the area, just kind of, it's unfortunate to say this because it shouldn't be this way, but it's like starting a business. You have to do marketing to let people know you exist and that this is what you offer, and it's different than X, Y, or Z. But that's what we did. And we did marketing and tried to let people know we were there. And so we finally started the church on Easter Sunday in 2013?
2012.
2012, yeah. Oh my gosh.
2012, and there was another bun in the oven, right?
There was another bun in the oven almost due at that point. We moved while she was pregnant with number 6. And so Isabel was born on like a week or two after we started the church.
Yeah.
And so for about a year, we just plugged along. We had some another girl that had moved up from Jupiter to be there. Courtney's parents moved up there to be there with us. And we started this church, and the next part of the story is not on this podcast today.
I mean, I think you guys are putting 2 and 2 together, right? Northeast Tennessee, Johnson City, Tennessee, the timeline. We'll leave you guys in suspense until the next episode airs. But I find it very interesting. I'm gonna be honest with you. There are things you said today. And I've been married to you for going on 12 years. We've been together over 13 years.
Yeah.
There are a couple things you shared today that I did not know.
Isn't that weird how that stuff just comes out when you're just kind of free thinking a little bit?
I think it is part of our stories. And those of you who can identify with this, and I know there's many of you because you've already reached out, at least some of you have, you get to the point where you have started to separate and box away certain parts of your life because we lived double lives in some situations. Like there was this part of us that we didn't want anybody to know about, and then there's this part that we want everybody to know about. And so you start to compartmentalize things, and if you're not careful, you just forget about them altogether. And so there are things that you shared today that I didn't know about, especially when it came to the ministries for conversion therapy.
Well, and I did compartmentalize in those years while Courtney and I were married, because I never did anything, but man, I would get on that app, that social media app called Grindr that nobody knows about, and I would talk to people. And I would, have them, get a picture from them or something. And, then I'd feel really bad and I'd delete it and just get on my knees the next morning begging God to please forgive me. I can't believe I got on there. I shouldn't have never talked to that. I hope they don't figure out who I am and come to the church. Heaven forbid if they come and out me. Oh gosh, this is going to be a disaster. And so you do compartmentalize and you try to function because you genuinely believe what you have been told and what you think is truth. And so you have to figure out, how do I deal with it? I don't know what to do with this. I don't know what to do with this. So let me just stick it in this little part of my brain and we'll see
how it turns out.
And so I want to circle back though, because, so many people I know that we've talked to and have met over the years, but have talked to, with this podcast, are either struggling in that same place or did struggle in that place. Some are people of faith. Some have deconstructed their faith. Some that listen are straight people who are people of faith, and some are not. So it's a mixed group of people that are on here. And so I want to circle back to those two things I said earlier, that book, The God and the Gay Christian, because I needed that at that point in my life. Not everybody's going to be a gay Christian. I get that. Some are going to deconstruct. Some have never been there. Some had no background in church. But for the people that did or are in that space, it's such a helpful book. Or if you're thinking, well, I've got friends or family that I love, but I don't know how to reconcile what is going on here, then I say read that book and watch that movie, 1946, because don't just take what's said from the pulpit as though it is the truth. That man is fallible. Trust me, I was a pastor. I sat in the rooms with pastors. They're fallible, normal human beings who come up with their own ideas and their own understanding of things that's been passed down to them. And so don't just buy what's been said to you. And like I said, we're going to get into deconstruction and stuff as we go along in the episodes that come. But I commend those things to people that may be in that spot and need that.
Yeah, agree. And I will tell you, Nathan and I are on the board of a group it's a 501c3 organization that was founded by our friends, Kirk and Adam. And we're going to have Kirk and Adam on at some point. They're going to talk about this. If you are struggling and you can't reconcile yourself with coming out, they have a wonderful organization, nonprofit, that they have started to help people come out and to coach you and give you resources and give you assistance.
And just
things that you
community
need,
and connection.
and provide that community and
Community
connection.
is so important.
That 501c3, that nonprofit is called Live Out Proud.
Yeah.
You can actually find it online, liveoutproud.com. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later, but I just wanted to mention there are programs, there are groups, there are people that are here for you if you are in that situation. And as Nathan's already shared, he didn't know what to do. He wanted to know more, but
I didn't know where to go.
You out yourself if you start asking questions,
Yeah.
and so many people are afraid to do that. So there are resources. We'll talk about them more on another episode. But I think for now, we just want to tell you guys again, thank you so much for listening.
Yeah.
Really appreciate your support and all the kind words that you've said. In all this endeavor, this journey that we called it the first week, remember?
Yeah.
In all this journey, I've only gotten one hateful gram. The rest of it has been overwhelmingly positive,
fantastic,
responsive. Really, we're going to read a couple of the reviews, maybe in a couple of episodes. In a couple more episodes, we're going to read a couple of the reviews that we've gotten that are just so sweet and so kind. So, you want to close us up?
Yeah. So again, like we said at the front, make sure you do rate, review, especially if you're on Apple Podcasts. If you can do a review, just take a couple minutes. It does help other people find this. And our goal in this is to build community and to encourage people as we go. And we'll have guests and conversations and all kinds of things as we proceed down the road of the Jerry and Nathan show. But thank you again for listening. And we look forward to seeing you back here in just a couple of weeks.
Bye, y'all.